Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fine. So shall we start?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So today we'll be doing the last block of MES-11, that is understanding education. Education overview, that is block number 4. So in this unit, that is unit 12, will be education, its dimensions, that is education, a dynamic and continuous process, need for alteration and context review, change in existing institutional structures, what are the different dimensions of education, that is education as an investment for economic benefit, education for social development, education for political democracy, education and human rights, education for ethical development, education and culture, and education and aesthetics. So here we are dealing with what are the different dimensions of education and how these dimensions of education affect for the social development and for the individual development. So first we see that education is considered as a tool for passing the knowledge, skills and wisdoms from one generation to another. But now the very role performed by education has changed. It is no more considered as only a knowledge giving institution. Rather, here we are trying to develop a child all his internal abilities so that the child will be able to cope up with the demands of the society. We are trying to create the child to cope up in the learning society of the 21st century. Here we see that the past knowledge is no more applicable in nowadays. It is outdated. We have to make our students well versed or equip our student with the latest technology, the different kinds of skills, the different types of knowledge that are required to meet the latest demand of the society. So we are preparing a generation for an ambiguous course of life, and that is what is known as challenge. What are the different challenges of life a child has to face in the future, in his or her future life? How the child will take different decision, how he will try to manage the situation, what are the different problems he'll be facing, how he will tackle those problems, whether he'll be decisive or indecisive, whether he'll be able to take decision or not. These are some of the important things that are to be taken into consideration while educating a child, because we are preparing an individual for the 21st century. Here we have to see, or we have to focus upon developing and nurturing qualities which will be helpful in observing the events, taking decision, synthesizing and analyzing the information. So here we are preparing an individual to be a member of a learning society. That is, the member should possess the skill of how to learn, how to make use of knowledge, information, be able to see interconnection between various bits of information, able to synthesize the old information with the new to arrive at a solution. So here we'll be preparing an individual or a child to cope up with the latest demands, to analyze the situation, to observe it thoroughly, to have a scientific bent of thought, to see whether he is capable enough to adjust, adapt, and moreover to be able to connect the past knowledge with the new one, that is moving from known to unknown, the maxims of teaching, from simple to complex, from concrete to abstract. So these are the different things which we are going to focus. So developing skills in different form imparting knowledge, these skills develop during the course of learning. Here, education is a tool utilized by the society to socialize its young members. Therefore, its dimensions would be closely linked to the task expected from the education. So here we see the different dimensions that we take into consideration should focus upon what? How to socialize the individual, how the individual be able to manage his future life, be an effective citizen of the country, be helpful in or have play an important role in developing the country, effective citizen. So here we see, as yesterday also I had quoted this uh, particular definition given by the national policy or particular recommendation given by a national policy on education 1986, that is education has an acculturating role. So here it plays an important function in enriching the cultural values, in preserving them, and also in transmitting them, so that the important values that are there in our constitution, that is fraternity, equality, justice, all these things can be maintained and practically visualized. Then education has also economic and non-economic benefits. So in the case of economic benefits, it prepares people to undertake their work in diverse aspects effectively. That is, it will be helpful for the individual to earn his or her livelihood, to have a better status in the society, to lead a peaceful and happy life, to lead a happy and contented life. So life is continuously becoming very complex. It was never a bed of roses, neither now also it is not a bed of roses. One has to struggle, survival of the fittest. And this, in the struggling process, education will help you out. So here we see human resources play a critical role in the effective use of resources. We need a change from imitation to innovation. No more copying out what was done in the past. We do admit that old is good, but still then, now it's the time for innovation, creativity, from uniformity to diversity. So gone as the we don't have to follow the old beaten tracks. We have to see for something new, something innovative. We should develop skills that will help us to enhance our creative talents, to practically use our creative skills. Creative thinking is essential to meet the challenges of living in the 21st century. So here we see that the focus is upon developing the creative talents of individuals, because that is the demand of the 21st century. Education cannot be limited to the cognitive domain only. We have three domains: affective domain, psychomotor domain, and cognitive domain. So now we cannot say that education is only focusing upon the cognitive domain. It has to take into consideration the affective and psychomotor side also, because we are opting for a wholesome personality development, a wholesome persona, which requires all the three domains to be equally developed. So here, social living basically is a partnership based on respect and trust between all involved. So here we see that what kind of trust, mutual respect, cooperation the society is having as a whole. Whether we have a peaceful coexistence, are we behaving in a rational way? Do we understand the real meaning of socialization? All our animal instincts are subdued or not? Or we are no better than an animal? So all these things is important. So treat others as you like to be treated. That is very important. Live and let live others. You should not have a selfish attitude. You should not be a self-centered person. You should be humble, down to earth. Should develop sympathy, empathy, cooperative attitude, honesty, truthfulness, tolerance, patience, mutual respect. These are some of the qualities which will refine your personality. So education needs to be creative process, a process that requires reflective mindset, which can be developed through repeated practice. As we know, the proverb that practice makes a man perfect. In the same way, we have to see that we have to refine or polish our skills, qualities by practicing them again and again. Again, the process begins with generation of an idea and ends with the idea being realized. This process is often ambiguous. However, through perseverance, practice, and effort, much can be achieved. In the process, one learns how to cope with the setbacks, thus developing resilience in the process. So, here one has to study that, as we know, the theories of learning say that, that is according to L. Thorndike, that is trial and error process, trial and error learning theory, which says that one has to try. To err is human. Human beings do make mistakes and errors. One has to learn from the mistakes because we know that each and every experience is educative. We have to learn, we have to rectify, we have to analyze our own behavior. So here we see that these qualities will help us to develop our entire personality, because Rome was not built in a day. In the same way, we cannot have a good persona in a single day. All these things, or we can become an ideal person or a good person, or we'll always try to develop towards perfection. No one is perfect, but we should always try to be a perfect man. So here, through education or with the help of education, we can develop different kinds of humane qualities. The central aim of education is building the powers of human mind and spirit. It is the formation, or as I would prefer to view, that evoking of knowledge and will, and of the power to use knowledge, character, culture, that at least if no more. This was a quotation of Sri Aurobindo. Here, one says that he says that human mind and spirit both have to be developed or evolved simultaneously, because in his integral education, he says that all the aspects of human beings, the psychic, the mental, the vital, the physical, the moral, everything is to be taken into consideration, because we are opting for a wholesome personality development. According to Jean Piaget, the principal task of education is to create men and women who are capable of doing new things, not simply repeating what other generations have done. So we are not here to repeat what others have told. We That is good. To imitate other is good, but one should not lose his or her own identity, your own uniqueness. This has to be developed. You should try to create your own identity. So with the help of education, we can do new things, rather in a better way. So here we see that in spite of all different types of scientific inventions, discoveries, there are some problems we are still facing. What are they? Poverty, floods, droughts, different kinds of infectious diseases, terrorism. So now it's time we should focus on how to solve these great problems with the help of education. We are concentrating on development in a lopsided manner, avoiding certain vital human issues. We are not going to the real cause behind them. We are only having a superficial knowledge. To be developed in the real sense means the entire nation or the entire country should have a happy and contented life. How is it possible if we find poverty? How is it possible if we find illiteracy? If the women are still neglected? We also find the caste differences now. People are there who are below the poverty line also. So here we have to focus on these issues. Then the task of education is not merely to impart knowledge and develop the skills of gathering and correlating facts. It is to see the significance of life as a whole, to awaken or develop human beings the capacity to perceive the essential, discover lasting values, and break down our national and social barriers instead of emphasizing them. We should develop in our students international understanding, universal brotherhood, fraternity, respect. So these are the qualities which are to be developed, and that is the main focus of education. That is the task of education. Then we see we are having two types of classroom. Two types of classrooms are there. One in which the teacher generally passes the information, teacher-centered classroom, where the teacher is the only active performer and the students are passive listeners. But now the emphasis is on what? Where there is an interaction between the teacher and student, and the learner becomes a constructive learner, a creative learner. That is the main focus of the constructivist approach. That is the latest trend. The constructive approach is in vogue. That should be our main focus. Being a teacher, one should understand the individual differences of the students, how to develop their learning styles, how to give better opportunity so that they'll be able to develop. They will be open enough to clarify their doubts. Let them experiment themselves and learn. The student should be given enough space to do that. The teacher should not dominate. The different technology and ICT enabled tools or smart classrooms should function well. Then only we can say that education has developed us. And accordingly, we will try to upgrade our classroom so that our students also develop and become efficient members of the 21st century, so that they'll be able to face their future in a very equipped way, well equipped, efficient enough, resourceful enough. They'll be able to manage their tasks of life, which is very uncertain, which is very complex. They'll develop their own footing. Then, according to the International Commission on Education for the 21st Century, which presents a holistic vision of education, it focuses upon 4 pillars of learning. Learning to know, then learning to do, learning to live with each other, and learning to be. So learning to know, that is, one should learn to know how to know. The process of knowing, how to search the cause and effect relationship, the thirst for knowledge, the quest for understanding and knowledge, comprehending the different ideas. Then learning to do, how to do a thing tactfully, skillfully, efficiently, quickly. Then learning to live with each other, how to have a peaceful coexistence. Cooperative atmosphere is required. There should be no violence, non-violence. Transparency between relationship. Then learning to be. This focuses upon your self-realization. You know yourself better than anybody else on the earth. What are your plus points? What are your negative qualities? How to rectify your character? How to learn from your mistakes? How to be a real being? That is important. Then education shall prepare the child for an active adult life in a free society, foster respect for the child's parent, his or her own cultural identity, language, values, and for the cultural background and values of others. So, this is all about how education should prepare an individual for the adult life. Should aim not only for developing a sense of dignity or worth in the individual or a sense of caring for the self and others, but also promote creative thinking. So, the demand is for creative thinking, capacity for reasoning, developing your reasoning ability, able to analyze problems, that is, problem solving capability, decision making capacity, so that to face the challenges of the third millennium. That is important. Then, education, a dynamic and continuous process. Here we see that an effective learner lies in the strategies he uses to learn. So, who is an effective learner? Who knows his weak points? He knows how to get, how to perform, or how to do a particular task, how to learn efficiently, how to concentrate, how to give his 100%. Then only one can be named as an effective learner. Once one has the knowledge of how to do something, implementing it in practice would not be difficult. If you know to perform a particular thing, then practically carrying out that thing will not be a difficult task for you. First, one should have the theoretical knowledge, then we'll be applying it practically. First, we learn the maxims of teaching. We learn what is a lesson plan, what are the different steps. After that only, after that we go for a practical teaching, or we deliver our lessons in practical classroom. That is, all of you must be knowing, that is known as practice teaching. So here one should have the theoretical knowledge and one should also practically utilize that knowledge. Then only you will be able to know where you are making mistakes and how to rectify those mistakes. Then learning is reflected in the mindset, behavior, disposition, attitude, and enthusiasm of the learner. Whether the learner is an active learner or a passive listener. Because a teacher is able, if a talented teacher or a well-versed teacher knows whether the students are actively listening or they are just physically present and mentally absent. That should not be the case. The very aim of teaching will be fruitless if the students are only physically present and mentally absent. The teacher.
मैडम कौन क्लास ये टॉपिक टिक
What happened?
जी मैम कौन सा टॉपिक अभी चल रहा है थोड़ा
ये MES-11 का ब्लॉक 4 हो रहा है।
जी जी मैम मैं ब्लॉक 3 में रुक गया हूँ तो इसीलिए
ये ब्लॉक 3 कल से खत्म हो गया, आज लास्ट ब्लॉक है।
ठीक है
So here we see that learning is reflected in the mindset, behavior, disposition, and attitudes and enthusiasm of the learner. So these all are the areas where we find that how the learning items are being reflected. The way we behave, one knows what is going on in your mind. The teacher is capable enough to study the different types of activities the individual is carrying on. As we say that face is the index of mind. It gets reflected on the face. It gets reflected in your behavior. So, the teaching learning process should be designed in such a manner the learner becomes an active performer. He not only becomes an active performer, rather he becomes the constructor of knowledge. And the role of the teacher is just like a stage setter. So here we see that flexibility is required. Flexibility in the sense that is, it can be of different type. The first one is integration of formal and non-formal systems of education, allowing students to flow in and out of one system to another. Another kind of flexibility is what? That is flexibility in entering and exit at various stages as per the student's convenience. So as per the student's convenience, one is able to enter and exit in a particular course. And here we see, so people can re-enter the educational circuit as per their needs and requirement. So flexibility of choice in education. Flexibility would provide diversity too. Variety of courses are there where you can enter and have knowledge. At a time you can go for 2 courses, so that time is also saved. There are some short and long courses also. It depends upon you which suits your personality, and accordingly you have to select. Then we see that there is requirement for alteration and context review. That is, we have to see, it is always a good exercise to pause at a period intervals and reflect on whether we are going where we wanted to do or wanted to go, and also whether it is right course in the present context. What can be done to achieve the most under the given situation? Is there a need to make alterations in the plan? When we plan to do something, we should always have a standby. We should always have some alternative plans. If a particular thing is not achieved in a particular the way we have planned, we should always follow the second plan and try to think and rethink that are we doing the right thing? Are we in the right track? Whether we are going to achieve our target or not. We should learn about time management, resource management. Then only will be able to be an effective learner. Then, how are our actions affecting others? Is the development lopsided? In what way the actions are needed to balance the situation? All these things are to be taken into consideration while planning for something, for achieving a particular target. All these things to be looked into. Then changes that are found in the existing institution structure. That is, diversification is being accepted in higher, secondary and higher levels of education. Many new courses we find. Combinations of different types of courses we find. The need of the hour is to provide educational system which can simultaneously cater to varied learner needs, since the learner choices are becoming more distinct. So we have different types of courses depending upon the local needs, depending upon the vocational requirements. Specific vocational courses are also there. Then different types of training programs are there. Enrichment and refresher courses are also there. Even distance education and open education is also there. If a person who is really interested in learning can go for different types of programs. Then we can give an example over here of dual education mode that is found in UGC. Under this, university will allow students to pursue certificate, diploma and advanced diploma in utility oriented topics, simultaneously pursuing a degree qualification. UGC Infonet is another example of this, of its move towards betterment. This brings into the classroom quality education programs by utilizing information and communication technology. So here UGC has also emphasized upon using information, communication and technology for making the class more effective, and also it has emphasized upon using smart classrooms. Then that is the context of lifelong learning. Lifelong learning, the concept is Now the concept has changed. It is no more limited to the four walls of classroom teaching. Now education is considered in its broader sense, that is from womb to tomb. It is a lifelong system. Continuity of education is for,
हेलो
yes,
हेलो मैम, ये जो डुअल एजुकेशन है ना,
जी,
मुझे उसके बारे में थोड़ा बता दे तो। ये क्या होता है?
डुअल एजुकेशन मोड जो होता है वो यूनिवर्सिटी इन्फोनेट की तरफ से, जहां पे आप एक कोर्स के साथ दूसरे कोर्स को भी कर सकते हैं। और ये सर्टिफिकेट कोर्स है, ये डिप्लोमा कोर्स है, एडवांस डिप्लोमा कोर्सेज है, जहाँ पे यूजीसी की तरफ से मिलता है, डिफरेंट टाइप्स ऑफ टॉपिक्स मिलता है, जहाँ पे आप डिग्री क्वालिफिकेशन भी पा सकते हैं। और यहाँ पे हम देखते हैं कि कैसे इंफॉर्मेशन और कम्युनिकेशन के द्वारा हम बेनिफिट हो पाएंगे और एट अ टाइम दो कोर्स कर सकते हैं, इसीलिए इसका नाम डुअल एजुकेशन मोड है।
थैंक यू मैम।
Then we see that how lifelong education says that flowing in and out of the learning institute as per the need and conveniences. This would slowly result in sharing of the responsibility of providing education by persons, institutions, and other serial subsystems, rather being a responsibility of the state alone. So now we cannot blame the state always that the state is not doing or not promoting education in a very good manner or upgraded manner. There are some different institutions. They are also sharing the responsibility of providing education. So here we see the relevance. Greater complexity in various arenas of the world of work calls for specialized skill. So now the society demands for specialized skills and manpower which has some special skills, well versed with the latest technology. So the programs or educational institution should give different types of vocational education, different types of skill-based education, so that the student who pass out from that particular institution will not will be able to get the employment. It will enhance the employability. Then we see more diverse range of educational opportunities are available to the learners. The time span for these would be flexible depending upon the learner's convenience. So, depending upon the student's time, one can go for different types of courses. There are some diploma courses, there are some degree courses, there are some certificate courses. Along with your work, you can continue. There are some distance and open learning courses where you can learn. There are evening classes also. In holidays also they provide education. The study materials are also provided in the format of CDs also that are there. In program learning materials are there. Then we see that different professions are coming out. For example, communication management, health and hospital management, tourism management. Earlier these courses were not there. And due to this, the employability has increased. We can find different types of courses. A student who is interested in these courses can opt for that. He or she can take these as professions. These are all professional courses. Then diversity. Diversity in education will be in respect of kinds of educational programs being undertaken. The programs need to be adaptable and flexible to provide education on demand. Innovative educational technologies available on hand facilitate adaptable and flexible learning experiences and communication. So here we see diversity is required because it will help the students to select. Different opportunities are provided. The student will select according to his or her own desire, so that will help him to develop interest. He'll become a sincere student because he has himself selected that particular subject and he is responsible for that. No one has overburdened him. No one has forced him to do that. If there are number of choices are more, then he'll be able to select a particular course which suits him, where he'll be able to complete and accordingly select his profession. Then we go for the different dimensions of education. So here education is meant for the overall development of human beings. And now it has been considered as a fundamental right. It is expected to impart skills suitable for living and making one's livelihood. So one should be able to get his or her livelihood, earn the livelihood, promoting general powers of the mind. So developing the intellectual power, then advancing learning. You can go for your higher education also. It is also expected to make an individual more civilized, cultured, promote rational thinking and civic sense. So here, even though we are moving towards technologized, modernized, westernized type of society, but we should not forget our cultural values, our ethics, the very essence of our country. They are the roots. So here the cultural values, rationality, civic sense, all these are to be taken into consideration, along with values which support modernization, urbanization, westernization, developing scientific temper, creativity, problem solving ability, time management. These all are also equally important. Then education should expand our horizon, our thought process. We should not be narrow-minded. We should not have caste and class feelings. We should not favor untouchability. These all things find no place in today's society. Increased efficiency, constructive participation in social events and processes, harmony in social and personal relationship, sustaining development and equitable social order are some of the important things that we expect from today's education. Then, education as an investment for economic benefit. So it is described as an input, output and outcome system which good policy can make more efficient. So here, in the language of business, it is considered as an good investment where we can find the outproduct are efficient citizens, skilled laborers, well-educated manpower. These all are very important because they'll work as catalyst in the nation's development. Here, investment in education gives people much more opportunities by developing their latent abilities. The hidden qualities are developed. The latent talents are developed. Education provides that particular platform where you can express, enhance your internal qualities. That is making your internal abilities external. Moving from the ignorance, darkness to the light of wisdom and knowledge. Here, economic development depends upon positive utilization of advancement in technology, science, and educated members are better equipped to do so. One who is educated is well equipped to deal with the latest gadgets and technology. He is more aware of the societal problems and issues. How the health is important. What are the norms of small family? Increased community awareness, community participation. Again, female education is equally important because we see that if a lady is educated, then she will be able to rear the child in a better way. So if a girl is educated, we say the entire family is educated. If a boy is educated, then the education is only for himself. So this improves the education and attainment of the family of the child. The rearing is good. Education increases social mobility, thereby breaking the barriers of class, caste, and gender. So these are the important outcomes if proper education is provided. Then for social development, what is education's role? Here we see that efforts are aimed at empowering people for accepting their responsibility and working for the welfare of themselves and others. Requires meeting certain basic needs like clean drinking water, nutrition, housing, health, basic schooling, along with productive work and safe working condition. In addition to social integration is also one of the important indicators of the degree of social development of the society. So here we see that if one is educated, one knows the importance of clean drinking water, importance of education, importance of nutrition, health and hygiene, sanitation, basic schooling, and this will lead towards social development. If individuals are developed properly, they can unite to develop a better society. Then, what is social integration? It implies the inclusion of or participation by the entire population, particularly the disadvantaged groups in social and in political life. That is, the women, children, disabled, minorities, and socially backward people should participate in the social life and also in the political life. So this is how we can say that education helps for social development, empowerment of the socially backward class, women, providing girls education, capacity building programs, equipping them with skills and abilities, developing their own potentiality, knowledge. The individuals will be able to exercise their rights properly and also perform their duties accordingly. It also aims for reducing poverty and social inequalities. So here, even female education helps in reducing mortality and fertility. So here we say that education performs a great role for the entire development of the total social development. Then education for political democracy. So developing countries find themselves caught in a situation of maintaining a balance between the needs of a rapidly changing global economy on which they have no or little control on the one hand, and values and traditions they consider important for maintaining their identity and political freedom on the other hand. So here we have to say that developing countries are there in between where they don't have any control over the different changes that going on. What are the values, traditions, and also political freedom? One has to maintain equilibrium between the values, ethics of the past, our cultural values and ethics, and also move at par with the changes. So the balance has to be maintained. Just like we were discussing about the material and non-material culture, so that we'll not have any cultural lag. In the same way, we should hold our ethics, folkways, traditions, values, and along with them, we should move forward, march ahead to meet the challenges of the 21st century in a democratic political scenario. We should understand the real meaning of democracy. By the people, of the people, for the people. All these things we learn a lot, but are we doing it properly? Are we understanding the real meaning of it? Are all the voters educated enough? Are they able to elect their leaders properly? These all things hold importance. Then the inclusion of high level of decision making, that is important to develop a good power structure in a democratic setup. Then rapid pace of modernization, which focuses upon skilled and knowledgeable people who can utilize information in a proper way, take proper decision, and also give emphasis upon national interests. We should select such leaders who don't have any sectorial interest. They should not be biased. They should not be partial. They should be impartial. They should have dedication towards national development. Lack of education can be one of the major causes of helplessness in a democratic society. Education enables one to vote in an informed manner, to make leaders accountable, and understand their own rights and duties. So here, you should be well informed about your political scenario. You should be aware and socially and politically conscious. You should select leaders who are accountable, who are responsible enough, who are able to do justice to their posts, so that we'll have a better future. Then, education and human rights. We all know that 10th December is considered as the Human Rights Day according to the General Assembly. It was on 10 December 1948 this particular decision was undertaken. So it focuses upon what? Economic, social, political, civil and cultural rights, directed towards strengthening the respect for human rights and fundamental freedom, full development of human personality, sense of dignity, promotion of social gender equality, understanding and tolerance, and enabling everyone to participate effectively in a free society. As a human, what are your rights? What are your duties? As a citizen of a world, I'm talking about world, not confined to a particular country or a particular state or a particular district or a particular local area. Think in a broader way. As a human being, what are your rights? What are your duties? How to do justice towards these things? For this, education is quite helpful. Therefore, education and human rights. The preamble of Indian Constitution reflects the basic principles of Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And what are they? Justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity. These are the four important cardinal principles or ideas, and they are to be practically carried out. Then we move on to education for ethical development. Here we see that humankind has made great strides in science and technology, information technology, genetic engineering. All these things have developed a lot. But what about the ethical maturity? Are we lacking behind in this case? Are we lacking behind in humane qualities? What about our animal instincts? Are we doing justice towards that? Are we worth enough to be called as human beings? Better than animals? So these all concepts or these all things are very important. Education should help human beings enter into the relation of life, mind, and soul of humanity. You should do justice to your very existence. You should develop those qualities which will help you to live and also help others to live. Self-centered attitude should not be there. Selfish motive should not be there. There should be no place for violence, disrespect. And these all things are focused over here. Successful performance of its responsibilities as a good citizen. You should be capable of doing this. A rewarding personal life by development of innate talent, powers of creative enterprise, and the capacity to appreciate the splendors of life. To lead a content life. To be happy within yourself. Happiness comes from within. If we are not happy inside, you'll not have positive vibrations. You'll spread negativity everywhere. Try to adjust, try to accommodate, try to assimilate the things, try to maintain equilibrium. Try to study the positive aspects of life. It all depends how you perceive a thing. Whether you consider a glass to be half filled or half empty, it is the way you see to it. Are you always satisfied, or either you are always satisfied or you are never satisfied? So here we see that the ethical considerations are very important. Education and culture. So here we see that culture includes everything: the art, crafts, literature, art, festivals, history, music, dance, everything. And we should exchange our cultural values because India is multicultural, multilinguistic society. We should develop a common identity. We should always say that we are all Indians. We are all brothers and sisters. I am a North Indian, he is a South Indian, this person belongs to the West, he is from East. That should not be the feeling. There is no place for regional disparity. You should be identified as Indians, as good human beings. To preserve our cultural legacy, it is important to recover, maintain, and sustain our cultural diversity. That is more important. Are you able to preserve it, enrich it, and transmit to your younger generation? The responsibility lies upon you, because your younger ones are trying to imitate what you do. They caricature what you do. So you should have that much understanding, that much of understanding. What cultural values you are carrying. Therefore, culture and education, they walk hand in hand. Then education and aesthetics. So education enables an individual to appreciate the finer things in life and the beauty of the world around him. A thing of beauty is joy forever. Are you looking at the external beauty or the inner beauty? The real beauty, the very essence of the word beauty that comes, that shows how you interpret, how you perceive a thing, how you observe a thing, and accordingly you'll be able to react. So seeing, experiencing, and valuing worldly aspects in a new way transfers the individual's relationship with the world, expanding their perception and values. So you should develop your vision, your horizon. Let sky be your limit. Move out from the narrow sectorial interest. think something broader, try to appreciate the world. An educated person which has capacity is a person who has the capacity to have a broader vision, ability to identify the uniqueness in everything, understand the value of the existence, identifies the web of relationship. So these all qualities are found in an educated person who understand the meaning of aesthetic. So here we see the expectations from education as a tool of socialization, how it helps in equipping the learners with different skills, which will help the learner to deal with the challenges of life, to become an effective citizen, and to prepare an enlightened citizen for a democratic country like India. Then we see education, knowledge generation. So here we'll be dealing with how knowledge is generated. We know that curriculum is a body of knowledge and skills to be transmitted to students. It is one of the means by which the overall aim of education is translated into achievement. So the aims which we have decided is practically carried out through the curriculum. They are the base through which we transact the subject matter, the content material that is to be transmitted. So here we say that education is interested in three aspects. What are they? Firstly, in the analysis of the concept of knowledge and its relation with other concepts like belief and truth. Secondly, what knowledge should be taught? What knowledge is worth having? Thirdly, how knowledge is generated. First, we should analyze the concept. Second, the truth behind the concept. Third, how the knowledge is generated. So here we see the different types of knowledge generation or the things that are to be taken into consideration for knowing what is real knowledge, the knowledge that is true, and how the knowledge is generated. What is more important? What is most worth? What knowledge is to be taken into consideration? How the knowledge can be acquired? And after acquiring that, how you can carry it out practically. So these all things hold an important, or they are very important in your day-to-day curriculum transaction. Then we see what exactly is that which we can be known. What does it mean to say that one knows something? The person says, I know this and this or this and that. Whether the knowledge is acceptable, whether it is true or false, whether it is his own whim or desire, whether it has some authenticity or not. These all things are important. So Plato's view of knowledge and rationalism. So according to Plato, knowledge and belief, he made a clear distinction between these two. What do you mean by knowledge and what do you mean by belief? So restricted knowledge to apprehension of certain non-sensible objects, that is, objects which cannot be perceived or experienced through the senses. He named them as forms and ideas. That is, conceptual knowledge or knowledge of different forms. Those things that can be only experienced. Those are known as conceptual knowledge. That is the knowledge about different concepts. Concept of a tree, concept of rocks, concept of clouds and men. Then Plato thought that knowledge by its very definition should be known beyond any doubt. and about the world of sense experience, the world of phenomena, what we sense, how we experience a thing. A person is sensible enough. Are we able to clearly understand what we are sensing? How we are perceiving it out? Then here we see that Plato was very skeptical about knowledge obtained through sense experience, because such knowledge, he considered that that kind of knowledge had two major drawbacks or flaws. That is, perception are often distorted and observation are always subjective. So the way I think I see a thing or I consider a particular thing may be subjective. That may not be the thing which other people are thinking. Purely, it may be purely confined to me, my likes and dislikes, my point of view, the way I am thinking. It may be quite different from others. I cannot force a person to think just like I am thinking. So here perception are often distorted and observation are always subjective. Again, even if there is no distortion, it is a fact that things always change. So if we are dealing with human behavior, it keeps on changing. It depends upon the situation. The way I am reacting today, I may not do it in a similar way later. So here, according to Plato, a matter of grasping necessary truth, necessary in the sense that in no circumstances it should be untrue, impossible to be mistaken about. Such knowledge is a priori, for it is ahead of our experience. So, according to Plato, what is a real knowledge? A real knowledge is what? That should be untrue. That is impossible to be mistaken about. That should not be any mistake regarding that to be considered as true. That is, it should always be considered as true and it should be something ahead of our experience. Then another thought process came in the 17th century, that is the rationalist tradition. In rational knowledge. Hello.
मैम डेफिनेशन है ना जो प्लाटो के. हेलो.
What?
जो डेफिनेशन था ना जो लास्ट वाला प्लाटो के, प्लाटो जी के जो डेफिनेशन है ना वो हम समझ नहीं रहे, थोड़ा समझाते.
Knowledge according to Plato was a matter of grasping necessary truth, necessary in the sense that in no circumstances it should be untrue. तो वो बोलते हैं कि ऐसे नॉलेज को एक्सेप्ट किया जाए जो हर वक्त ट्रू हो, किसी भी कारण वो अनट्रू नहीं हो, जिसमें सब कुछ सच होना चाहिए, वही चीज को तुम नॉलेज बोल सकती हो, वरना उसे नॉलेज के लिए कंसिडर नहीं किया जाएगा. It should never be mistaken as untrue. It should be always true. It should have enough sufficient evidence to say that it is true. One should be able to prove it as true. Otherwise, it not be considered as a true knowledge or real knowledge. Therefore, this is something beyond of our experience. And therefore, it is known as a priori. Then we move on to another thought, that is rationalist tradition. In rationalism, knowledge is regarded as an analogous to grasping of mathematical truth. So rationalism or rationalistic view, the word comes from rational. Rational means where we say that there is some logical thought process which you can prove. For example, we take the example of mathematical truths. That is, the three angles of triangle will always be equal to 180 degree. 7 plus 5 will always be 12. If you added or I added, it will be always will 12. These are some things that hold rational views. So these are necessary truth. Truths which they ought could be derived from self-evident principles and understood as we understand the truths of mathematics and logic. So the truths of mathematics and logic are considered to be rational, logical, and we are able to prove them. Then the empiricist view of knowledge. The empiricist view of knowledge is known as a posteriori knowledge. A posteriori knowledge. So, which takes science as a paradigm. Here we say knowledge is not taken as a matter of deduction or self-evident principles, but comes from as a result of observation and experimentation in the empirical world. So here you should have enough evidence. That is, one should be able to observe it and also experimentally prove it. You should have enough alibi and evidence to prove that that particular knowledge is correct. And we make large-scale generalization about the contents and events of the world. These generalizations we can use to explain and predict the course of future experience. This is empiricist model of knowledge associated with those philosophers who support empiricist or empiricism are John Locke, Hume, and James Mill. Knowledge obtained is knowledge of the substance. This substantial knowledge, however, is not a body of necessary truth, but conclusions or generalization based on observation and experimentation or experience which are contingent in nature. So, here we consider things to be true only if they are experimentally proved. If we are not able to prove it experimentally, then we'll not consider it to be as a knowledgeable concept or a thing. 2 plus 2 is 4. That is a mathematical example. Here we are saying something more than that. For example, the sugar tastes sweet. The fire burns. Ice is cooler. Ice gives a cooler effect. It may happen otherwise also. Here we conclude that contrary of any empirical truth is always possible, where the contrary of mathematical truths are logically impossible and absurd. In mathematics, we cannot think of that 2 plus 2 will equal to 5. It is always proved and that is always logically correct. But in this case, that is, which are contingent in nature, sometimes it may so happen the things we say true today may be proved wrong day after tomorrow due to some new changes in the nature, where we'll not be able to prove it experimentally. So here we say that mathematical knowledge is not substantial or informative of the actual world. Such knowledge is purely formal. So mathematical knowledge is otherwise known as formal knowledge. Then knowledge as necessary as and synthetic.
Madam,
Of the
madam,
yes.
madam, we discussed about two things. One is a priori and a posteriori. Two things we discussed. If you can relate both of the things together, then we can have a better understanding about it.
That comes to the next part of it. After we discuss the knowledge as necessary and synthetic, we can move on to that.
Okay.
Prior to that, if you want to have an idea regarding a priori and a posteriori, the things which focuses upon, for example, where we say that a thing is true only if there is no case where we can prove it as untrue. That is known as a priori knowledge. Whereas a posteriori knowledge is that knowledge where we say, as a result of observation, we have proved it. As a result of experiment, we have proved it. If something new comes in the following days, something new comes where we will not be able to prove it, that it is true, then we can say that it comes to the a posteriori knowledge. But a priori knowledge is always true. We
Always
can
true.
prove it to be untrue.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you, ma'am. I wanted this. Thank you.
Shall I say it in Odia also?
Ma'am, understood. I
कथाटा
understood.
एया हैला जे जोटा आमे देखुचु सबु बेला पईका सत्य को जिंसडा सत्य बोली धरिबा जोटा कि जत्ते बेले भी आमे प्रमाण करिया पे चाहिबा सेटा केबे भी प्रमाणित हेई परिबनी मिछ बोली. That is an a priori knowledge. You'll never be able to say that it is untrue. But a posteriori knowledge do has some chances of being said to be as untrue. Some of the
Untrue. Yes, ma'am. I
will be
understood.
able to say that is untrue if some evidences come out that to be as untrue. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Just follow the a posteriori knowledge type of thought process. Okay? And it requires some substantial knowledge. That is, it has to be supported by experiments, experiences, and it may so happen that sometimes this particular experiment may also prove it to something else, where you will not say that as true. You keep on changing according to the experiment's result. Then we move on to the both rationalist and empiricist account of knowledge that seems to be one-sided but not wholly adequate. The inadequacy of the rationalist mathematical paradigm was that the necessary truth, though certain, did not give any substantial information which can be useful. So here we say that mathematical knowledge are all factual knowledge. How that knowledge to be considered as useful for the society is not possible. Those are only considered to be facts. But we require something that will be helpful in dealing the societal everyday lifestyle. So here we are moving on to something new. What are they? They are contingent proposition. They are true only in so far as there is evidence to support them. And there is always the possibility that fresh evidence may show something to be false. So contingent propositions are those things that we face, and some of the other time if we say that the particular thing is not showing a particular result, then we can change our knowledge also. The new thing will be accepted and the old one is to be rejected. So these contingent propositions keep on changing basing upon the new evidence that we get, which are not equal to the mathematical facts. They are always there. They can never be proved untrue. They are facts, that's why. Therefore, they are termed as facts. And these contingent propositions are not facts. They keep on changing depending upon the new evidence that we keep on experimenting and get it. Okay? So, here proposition in mathematics and logic are necessarily true. But it is not the case in this contingent proposition. Here, this dilemma trends to produce considerable intellectual discomfort. If taken strictly, we cannot claim to have knowledge of the world, which is certain or necessarily true. But the fact remains that we have an inescapable conviction that there is a kind of necessity inherent in the world, that what happens in it has something more than mere contingency. Our regular uniform experience leads us to expect events to occur as they do. We expect that causes will have the effects they have do, and objects will behave as they normally do. From this we conclude that there is a necessity in what happens. So We cannot say that everything is in our control. There is something we call as nature, and it has its own mystery. After the facts, there are some things that keep on changing, and we should always try to accept the new version of the knowledge, the new results that have come out of the experiments. We will always try to accept those things because those are now workable. So here we see that another view of Kant, who argued that in experiencing the world, we necessarily do so under certain conditions. We can experience the world as we do on the assumption that the world is a causal system operating in space and time. So the world has its own natural laws, rules, and regulations, which is beyond our control. It has its own cause and effect relationship. Some we can prove, and some there is also a lot of things are there which we are still in the process of proving, experimenting, finding different types of evidences. So Kant holds that we can only experience the world under certain forms and categories of mind, which structure our experience and give it a framework of necessity. Kant holds structuring of our experience to be logical prerequisite of our own knowing or even experiencing at all. So we look at a particular thing or try to prove a particular thing on the basis of our past knowledge. The way we perceive a thing in the world is something has reference with the past knowledge, the past experiences. So here he says that there is a causal system operating in the world, and accordingly we have to consider the things as knowledgeable, as true knowledge or false knowledge. There are some propositions which are intact. There are some which keep on changing. Okay? Then the concept of knowing. So what is the concept of knowing? Here, there is an attempt to analyze the concept of knowledge as what are the conditions of knowledge and what justification is required to substantiate a claim that something is known. I am a knowledgeable person. How can I prove it? What are the evidence? What evidence can I give to justify my statement? Whether those evidence are able to go through an experiment? If yes, then only we can say that the statement is true. If no, then it is only a belief and the statement is untrue. So it is better to think of it as what Ryle said, that is the concept of mind calls an achievement word to know that P is the cause, is to claim to have had a success, is to be in a certain position in respect of P. Roughly to have known something is to guarantee the truth of the proposition concerned. So here one has to guarantee the truth of that proposition to consider it as a truth. One should have enough evidence to say that a particular concept called P is true because I am giving so and so examples, because I am able to prove it. Because if you also experiment it, it will give you the same result. It has enough of reliability and validity. Then only will be considering it as a right thing or as a truth as a concept to be considered as a true concept. Then conditions of knowledge. What conditions have to be fulfilled or satisfied before anyone can properly be said to have known something? The first is what? There are three things, three criteria for the conditions that are to be considered as conditions of knowledge. What are they? Here, the concept, for example, here the example has been taken as the word letter P. The P must be true, that the claimant must be sure and have evidence to support the claim, constitute the analysis of the concept of knowing. A particular thing to be considered as knowledge must be true. The person who says must be sure about it. Again, the person should have enough evidence to say that what am I saying is true. Okay? Then only we can consider that particular thing to be as a knowledge. If I am saying a particular thing to be true, I should be myself sure that it is true. I should be able to give you examples and evidences that is true. Then only it will satisfy the criteria of being a particular concept, that is knowledge. Then here, knowing that, knowing how, believing and understanding. Here the concept of knowing has been discussed in terms of what may be called a proposition or theoretical knowledge, that something is the case, but there is however another kind of knowledge in terms of how to do something. How to do something. For example, sometimes we say that a person is able to perform a thing properly. Here an example, let me tell you an example. Here it is, example is of a riding a bicycle. One may be able to speak about how to play hockey, but in fact he may not be a good player at all. It is not very easy to make true statements, but how one balances a bicycle or how one is able to swim, even if one knows very well how to do it either. Knowing a thing and particularly practicing a thing is a different thing. I can say that hold your handle straight, put your leg on the pedals, then try to push it forward, lean a bit, then try to pedal it, then you'll be able to maintain a balance and move forward. Then only you'll be able to learn how to ride a bicycle. I may say it and give you a theoretical knowledge, but I may not be able to ride it myself. Practically, I may not be able to do it, but theoretical knowledge is something else. Theoretically, I am able to explain you, but practically, I may not be able to do so. So here, knowing how is different than knowing that. Knowing that means literally you know how to ride a bicycle. सत कथा केमती मु साइकिल चलेबी पैडल को धरिली बैलेंस होउची पड़ी जाउची गोटे गोड़ को तळे थोइकी एडजस्ट करके मु कली किंतु जेते बेले मु थियोरेटिकल नॉलेज देली सतर यदि मते कहा हला जे जहा कहिले आपण आपण करी की साइकिल ता चले की देखांतु किंतु सत बेले को मु बैलेंस रखी पारुनी हैंडल सीधा रहउनी पैडल देला बेले को पड़ी पड़ी जाउची. That shows that theoretical knowledge I have, but knowing how I have, but knowing that or practically doing that, I don't know that. So there is a difference between knowing how and knowing that. Okay? A person who has similarity between knowing how and knowing that knows the entire thing. काहेकि ना से theoretical knowledge भी अच्छी आउ practical knowledge भी ता पाखरे अच्छी. साइकिल केमती चला जाए मु कहि भी परिबी आ साइकिल चले की देखे भी परिबी. Both of them are two different things, but both of them have to move together. Then we move on to believing. Like knowing, believing also is not an activity. To believe is to take up a certain position in respect of a proposition. It is to accept the proposition as true. To believe that P is the case is to accept that P is true. But it, however, does not mean that one guarantees the truth of P. मोर विश्वास जे P टा सत्य, किंतु केते दूर सत्य की मिछ मो पाखरे ग्यारंटी मु देई परिबी की? That is a separate issue. That is my own belief. You say that so and so is a reliable person. He may be reliable for you. He may not be reliable for me. He may ditch me. How will I say? Only because believing upon you, I'll believe him. That may not be the thing. So he may be truthful to you, but not to me. So that is a different thing. That is the difference between believing or other concept. Believing does not require any evidence for our proposition. Sometimes you believe a thing without having any evidence. A person whom you consider as an idol, if that person says you something, you start believing that. My ideal has told me, the person whom I like the most has told me, that means it is true. Even if the world says no, I will believe him or her. So that is what the concept of belief is. It will not always search for evidence. Therefore, sometimes we also go for blind faith and blind belief. Understanding entails knowledge, but it also involves our being able to use this knowledge. It is a special sort of knowing how to do, how to go on. So here understanding is something different. Understanding means you know the concept, you know that the particular knowledge is worth accepting, worth believing, it has evidence to prove, you understand the concept thoroughly, you know the mechanism that is to be carried out, then only we can say that you have understood the entire thing. Then, what is the meaning of truth? Here in your book, 7 examples have been given, and 7 of them have different meaning of truth. And each and every statement is true in its own place. Let us go to that. The first statement is, the first battle of Panipat was fought in the year 1526. So here, this particular statement goes to the reference of historical reference. Here we consider the textbook as an authoritative document, and we feel sure about it in spite of our fact that we lack personal acquaintance with the evidence. I was not there, you were not there in the year 1526. No one is the eyewitness. Only the evidence is the book saying that. That is an authoritative document. Therefore, we believe it to be as true. Okay? Then, next, milk contains bacteria. That is the statement number 2. Okay? Milk contains bacteria is something which is to be proved through experiment. So here it has a basis of empirical evidence. Okay?
Ma'am, we are unable to listen to you. Please unmute yourself.
Hello. Hello.
Sir, madam has left.
Yes, sir.
Some problem is there or something she's telling something. Hello.
Sir, we do not know madam that.
Okay. I'm calling,
Okay, sir.
I'm calling. Okay.
Hello guys.
Yes. Hello. Right. Hello. Hello.
Yes sir.
कौन गोटे problem है कि okay madam she may come back. Okay. So what is the topic
Okay, sir.
today? What is the topic today?
Sir, today's topic is block 4. It is about education and overview.
Educational
MES-11.
Okay.
And sir?
Educational overview.
Yes sir. We are discussing now knowledge generation.
Yes. So tomorrow what is the topic?
So tomorrow MES-12. I don't know.
I don't know. MES-12. What is the topic? You forgot, huh?
Yes sir, I'm remembering. I'm trying to get it.
Okay. Okay, he may have something.
Sorry, education lecture and purpose.
Education lecture.
MES-12.
Please share in the message box. Okay.
Okay.
So everybody, those who do not know the topic or something,
Sir,
so they can.
it's over.
Yes.
Sir, today's class is over.
Today?
Today's class is over.
No. She'll call. Maybe she has some problem for connection. She'll come back. Okay.
Okay.
I am calling, but she's not picking the phone. Maybe
there is some problem.
maybe connection. Actually, mobile में connection किया ना इससे problem रहते हैं.
जी सर.
वो कोई कॉल आया फिर बीच में चला जाता है. ब्रॉडबैंड
कनेक्ट होने के लिए प्रॉब्लम होता है.
मैडम गुड इवनिंग. आ गया वहाँ से कट गया आ गया. ओ मैडम ओके. Madam is coming soon. Hello.
Hello.
Yes sir.
Madam is coming soon.
Okay sir.
Okay.
Wait. So have you sent your name and enrollment number in the chat box?
No sir.
You should write. You should write your name and enrollment number. Okay. So it will be recorded in the how many students are attend in the classes. Okay.
Okay sir.
So how is the lecture today?
Sir, it was wonderful.
Okay. Okay. So I think she'll come. Okay. Where? Okay. Which you can interact. What's the problem? You can interact yourself. Okay.
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 Friends, actually.
Hello.
Tell me.
Yes. Friends, I could not understand what is knowing how and believing. If any of you have understood it, please explain here. Share your knowledge, please. Hello there. I'm requesting everyone.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello. Okay. So here we were there in that second statement that milk contains bacteria, where we see that it has to be proved on empirical basis because we cannot prove it without going through an experiment. So this again a different kind of statement or a different meaning of truth, which requires empirical evidence. The third, by 2020, India will attain the status of a developed country. So here we see that it is based upon a belief or a careful observation of the rate of developmental trends in India at present, and it refers to the future state of affair. Therefore, it will attain the status of a developed country, it has been mentioned, and it is empirical in character. Like this like other statement of the present tense, it is a factual assertion on the ground that its truth or falsity can be determined in principle by empirical observation of the trend of development. So here we have to see that if we want to prove this particular statement that by 2020 India will attain the status of a developed country, it may so happen that this particular statement may be proved false also. So it is considered to be a factual assertion on the ground of truth or falsity, which is to be determined by the trend of where we will empirically observe the trend of development, whether there is a good trend or positive trend towards the development we are moving, or we are going towards some downfall. Then the fourth one, which says the three angles of the triangle is always equal to 180 degree and irrespective of the size or shape of the triangle. This particular statement is a combination of formal and factual truth, and such definitions are empirical generalizations about usages. So in that sense they convey only a formal truth. So it is a mathematical saying which says that three angles of a triangle is always equal to 180 degree. So in this sense, in this case we have seen four different types of propositions saying four different types of truth. Again, this particular truth is considered to be a formal and factual because it refers to the assertion which conveys a correct impression about a relation of meaning, some given arrangement or schemes of ideas such as mathematical, logical, or synectical. The factual truth, on the other hand, refers to the assertion which conveys a correct impression about some existential state of affairs, affair that existed, or may exist in a space-time matrix. That is to say that the three angles of a triangle is sum total of 180 degree. If we add it, we are able to prove it irrespective of its size and shape. So this particular thing is a fact and it refers to the formal factual truth. Then we move on to the fifth statement. What is it? A coronation is the act or ceremony of investing a sovereign with the royal crown. What is it? It is a statement where we see no, that is the fifth one. Yes, the fifth one says that is the coronation is the act or a ceremony of investing a sovereign with the royal crown. Here we see that it is all about generalization about usage. It conveys only a formal truth. In this particular thing, it says that a particular ceremony or a festival about the royal family. It is a truth, but it has its own saying, and it is a formal and a factual truth. Then we move on to the sixth one. That is, the electrical current flowing through a conductor is proportional to difference of electric pressure between its ends. This is referring to physics. Here we say that these are all scientific entities as electrical currents and pressures. Here we consider the nature of scientific theory. A scientific law is an assertion of an invariable association of independently defined variables. So here we say these all things can be proved through experiment. So the sixth statement is referring to some scientific entity. Then we move on to the seventh one. You should do unto others as you would have them do unto you. This is what? That is the last statement. What is the last statement is saying? It is a moral truth. It says about that how you should behave, what kind of moral knowledge or value you should have. So in this thing, it is said that such statement perhaps do not convey any formal truth. Rather, they are non-cognitive and thus neither true or false. So they are just like a moral truth. There is no truth or falsity behind them. It do not convey any formal truth. So here we see 7 kinds of statements with 7 types of truth behind them. All of them have some or the other truth behind them, and here we have different types also. Then how are we going to test it? That is the testing part, testing of truth. Here we say that there are 3 types of truth. One is the factual truth, the formal truth, and empirical truth. Here we have to see that the factual truth should be tested against the correspondence theory. How you will find whether it is factual truth or not? One has to test it. That is with the help of correspondence theory. Then the formal truth relating to the scientific laws should be tested against the coherence or the consistence theory of truth. Then finally the third one, that is the empirical truth, which will be testing against the workability principle. Workability principle, that is whether it is workable or not. If it is not working, if it is not satisfying us, then we will not accept that thing. So the 3 theories, that is the formal truth, the factual truth, and empirical truth. And how are we going to test it out? First is the correspondence theory for testing the factual truth. Here we have the criteria to judge whether a statement describes some state of affair is really true or not. Here, seemingly selecting a criterion on truth should be an easy task. On the face of it, we can compare any information, fact, or opinion with reality. If it squares with reality, it is true. If it does not, it is not true. That is, reality should match with this particular statement. If in reality this particular thing does not happen, then we will not consider it to be as true. We will reject it. So the correspondence theory always takes support of reality. If in reality it is true, then only we can say that it is true. Otherwise, we will not consider it to be a correspondence theory of truth. It says that knowledge to be true must square with reality, but the question is that what we call as reality and with which we require the correspondence of any information, fact, or opinion, a non-changeable entity. That is, one should not change. It should be constant. What is true today may not be true tomorrow. Or is there anything like permanent truth for which we can see its correspondence at any time? Again, reality, that kind of reality which is true forever. A thing which does not change. A thing which is true forever. a thing which is there present in reality, then only we can say that particular thing to be a correspondence theory of truth. Then coherence theory of truth or consistency or coherence theory, which says that testing the truth of the proposition of mathematics and logic, we need a logical or formal proof. That is a proof which is free from any kind of contradiction or logical fallacy. That is, there should not be any logical error or fallacy into it. It can be proved logically. Therefore, examples of propositions of mathematics and logic are taken into consideration, where it has internal consistency or coherence. Here, this is considered to be the second theory for testing the truth, that is coherence theory of truth, where we will find the examples of mathematical and logical facts. Then here we say, not only in this theory applicable for determining the truth of logical and mathematical problems, we also apply consistence theory. This particular theory is also used for testing empirical propositions. The very nature of human perception of knowing reveals that it is always refracted through the prism of human mind. What one knows is not the photographic impression of what exists out there. So here, a little bit of twist. What is that? What one knows is not always what exists in reality. What we accept as real or true may not always the same thing. जहाँ जोटा आमे देखिलु कि जानिलु सत्य बोली सत्तरे सत्य सेटा थिबो बोली माने नुह आमुको सेया दुसु थाई पारे. If we wear a red color glass and look at to the sky, we'll say that the sky is red color. But is that so? No. The reality is something else. So the way we perceive a thing, the way we see a thing, it is our own subjective perception. It may not be always the real truth. So it may be due to human error also. Our perception are based on our past experiences. We judge a person according to our past experiences, according to our own, we have our own viewpoints. We have our own thought processes behind a particular judgment. So here, past experiences also have an important role to play. So for example, we do experiments in natural sciences or in social sciences and repeat those experiments at different times or with different samples of population with a view to obtain a consistent view of the state of affairs. But natural experiments or experiments with science at the particular temperature, at a particular pressure will give you the same result. But dealing with human beings, the researchers in education, sociology or psychology will not give you the same result every time, even though repeating with the same samples. That is what a different thing. So here, difficulty in such situation is due to the objectivity, reliability of our perception. Hence, the best possible way to reach truth is to see the consistency between our ideas and impressions about reality and ideas or impressions of others. So here we have to match with what? Two things, that is our own ideas and the reality is what. Then only we can find the consistency or the coherence theory of truth. Okay. So we consider the test result to be reliable if successive measurements of a single investigator tend to be consistent. So reliability is all about consistency, and objectivity is what? If they are consistent with the measurement of other investigator. If I measure a particular thing, that shows the that gives you the one particular answer. If you measure that same thing and also get that same result, then objectivity is there. Otherwise, there is some subjectivity or biasness or partiality is there. Then we move on to another thing is what? That is, the consistency theory is not to take place of correspondence theory. Here we say they are both supplement to each other, even though they seem contradictory, but they supplement each other and each of them are equally important. Then we move on to pragmatic theory of truth, which says that things that are workable, things that can be practically used or practically useful and effective are said to be true. So the pragmatist or the instrumentalist, they are otherwise known as, or experimentalist, who express their dissatisfaction with either of those theories of truth. These particular people, the pragmatic theory supporters, are not in favor of the coherence theory, neither the correspondence theory. They have their own viewpoint regarding the authenticity of truth. Here, they propose to test the truth of ideas by inquiring what would be the practical consequences of acting on them. Whether practically that is carried out, the thing that is considered to be true is able to be practically carried out or not. If we are not able to do it practically, if that is not working, then we'll not consider it to be true. If the idea works to do what is intended to do, it is true. जोथिपाई से जिनसटा सृष्टि हेची, जोथिपाई सेटा उद्दिष्ट, तापाई सेटा यदि सेथिपाई कार्यकारी हेई परिला, ताहाले ताकू आमे सत्य बोली मानिबु, सेथिरे सत्यता अछि बोली जानिबु. जदि सेई जिनस जोथिपाई तयारी हेची सेटारे सेटा कार्यकारिता हेलानी, तार कार्यकारिता प्रमाणित हेई परिलानी, ताहाले आमे ताकू अनट्रू बोली भाबिबु, सत्य बोली धरिबा नाही. So truth is what it works. Truth according to them is never perfecting, unchangeable, but always in the making. It perhaps relative and hence dependent on the spatio-temporal context. So here, the thing which is true today may not be true tomorrow. So it keeps on depending upon the space, depending upon the needs, depending upon the requirements of time. So they say the thing those are working today are true for today. If they stop working tomorrow, they are no more true. They are not to be considered as true anymore. So in this way, we have seen the three things, three different theories. Then we move on to knowledge getting process, that is mind as a tabula rasa, the concept propounded by John Locke, who says that mind is like a blank slate that is to be imprinted, and moreover it focuses upon a teacher-centered environment where the teacher's concept or what the teacher teaches is just getting imprinted or written upon the student's mind. But that is not the case nowadays. Here, we are not considering that mind is just like a clean state, leads to the reliance on teacher-structured experiences as the major road to knowledge. It also assumes that students are passive receivers who need to be externally motivated in order to become involved in learning. So here, in order to get knowledge, one has to be a passive listener according to this particular philosophy, and the teacher is the sole authority, has the sole authority of providing the knowledge. But just in contrast, we have something else, that is the second approach to knowledge, that is mind as a flowering seed. What this particular approach says, that the mind is already endowed with potentiality which through education can be converted into actuality. This particular view has been propounded by Froebel, who emphasizes upon the role of motivation in the intellectual growth. According to this particular approach, the teacher is just like a gardener. He is a stage setter. And this, but according to this view, he acts like a gardener. He has to nurture, take care of the plant. And here, the plant is who? The students. And the gardener has no influence on the kind of flower that will emerge, and it is determined by the nature of the seed. What type of output or outproduct will come out of from the different students, the different personality they will evolve into, is not certain now. The teacher has nothing to do with it. A banana tree will give you banana, a mango tree will give you mango, a coconut tree will give you coconut. The gardener only has the role to give what? Water, properly take care of it, give manure, give pesticides. All these things are to be performed by the gardener. In the same way, the teacher is to prepare the platform, give enough opportunity, nurture the child, rear the child. But what the child becomes is all up to his own internal qualities. How he or she blooms up. Why that? Therefore, this particular theory has been named as a flowering seed. From one particular seed, the plant grows, then it takes the shape of bud, then it takes the shape of flower. प्रथम कढ़ कढ़रू फूल मंजीरू फूल पर्यंत जो प्रक्रियाटा रहिला सेटा मंजी ऊपर डिपेंड करूची मंजी को जहाँ लालन पालन करवा कथा माली सेया करिकी दे देला किंतु कोन फुटिबो केमिति फुटिबो it depends upon the quality of the manji. So here we have to say a teacher is like a gardener who must feed and water the plants and should stand back allowing the plants to grow. So here we do not find the authoritative role of the teacher. The teacher should not dominate the teaching learning scenario according to this particular approach. So here we say that if we, the two approaches, one saying that the clean state approach, which considers the importance of external reality, the other saying that internal things are more important. If we combine these two things, we will get a new thing, that is the genetic epistemology of Piaget. He is a follower who says both of these theories are equally important. So, according to this particular philosophy, the organization of knowledge arises in the interaction between the structured characteristics of the environment and the active imposition of order of the child. One factor can never be evaluated without knowing the other. So all the heredity and the environment equally interact to give the outproduct. Okay. So in this approach, children are treated as interactive generator transformer. The source of organization is interaction and the nature of knowledge is construction. So here one has to interact with the environment and accordingly try to construct the knowledge. So Piaget's approach is a synthesis of the clean slate and the flowering seed, and it is based on the principle used by organismic biologists to explain how living beings interact with their physical environment. Human beings interact with their physical environment and accordingly they try to refine or modify their behavior. So in this way, we find the three different theories of knowledge and we move on to the generation of knowledge. So here we say that one of the important functions of education is concerned with acquisition, generation and transmission of knowledge. According to Harris, education, according to him, in a particular sense refers to a particular process or group of processes that are manifested in the deliberate provision by socially approved institution a set of learning experiences that are not narrowly confined to either to restricted vocational ends or to the development of singular skills. It includes the provision of learning experiences or the transmission of knowledge as it occurs in place of school, university, technical colleges and the like. So here we have to say that there are infinite body of knowledges, packages that are there, provides the means and resources whereby these things can be approached. Finally, it applies pedagogical expertise in an attempt to ensure. First of all, education performs three things. What are the different infinite body of knowledges? It tries to pinpoint them, it tries to identify them. Then it provides the different resources or means by which we can have these things. Then it provides the pedagogical expertise, that is the teaching learning facilities which are required to make, to avail this knowledge, to practically get this knowledge so that our students will become knowledgeable. So we see that there are different views. That is, the empirists have their own view, the inductivist approach they have, that is inductivist approach that refers to your inductive and deductive logic. Inductive logic and deductive logic. Deductive logic has a conclusion what? That all men are mortal. Inductive logic has a conclusion what? That some men are mortal or Ram is mortal. To be specific, we are dealing with inductive knowledge. But when we generalize a thing or we take in a wholesome way, we go for an inductive conclusion. That is all men are mortal. So here there are different methodologies for transmitting the knowledge, for gaining the knowledge, and education should establish the truth and facts about the world. It is the role or the function of education is to generate the knowledge, to preserve the knowledge, to verify the truth and falsity about the knowledge, and accordingly transmit it. Then how we interpret an object, how we interpret the world. Here we see that the subject, the knowing agent, and the object is to be known. The subject is the person or the knowing agent, and the object is what? That is the thing to be known. What is the relationship they say? How you see a thing, how the subject perceives a thing, how the subject observes the thing. So here a thing is, according to Berkeley, held that a thing is because it is being perceived. Essence of a thing lies in its being perceived. On the other extreme of the classical idealist positions are thinkers where they say a particular thing is a thing according to the viewpoint of the observer. For example, beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder. You see a flower, I see a flower. You explain it in a different way, I explain it in a different way. I explain it, okay, a flower is this, but a rose is a red color flower, it smells sweet, it has also thorns. Just like giving a scientific description about it. A person who has a literary taste will say, a rose is something which smells sweets, it is very attractive, the red color is very attractive, and it is taken as it is considered as a token of love. It has different shades, every shade has a different meaning to it. So here the second person attaches a poetic touch to it. The first person only gives the outer definition or just gives a scientific description about it, how the rose flower looks at. So here knowing and interpreting the world is also an important thing. How you perceive a thing. We can neither deny the existence of the world to be known, nor the mind that knows it. So both the subject and the object are equally important in their own place. The world is important and your mind is important. The world exists and the mind interprets in its own subjective way. जेझा जगह जेझा इम्पोर्टेंट एटा व्यक्ति विशेष ऊपर डिपेंड करे, इंडिविजुअल ऊपर डिपेंड करे से कौन देखुची, कौन बुझुची, आउ ताकू केमिति परिप्रकाश करूची, तार दृष्टिकोण कौन, आउ अन्य व्यक्तिर दृष्टिकोण अलगा लोकर लोक कथा समान न थाई पारे. So each and every individual have their own viewpoints, have their own specific way of interpreting or perceiving a particular thing. Then the empiricist or inductivist model, what they have to say, they say the diligent gathering of facts and then drawing out of generalities. The empiricist observe phenomena, collects information about it, and then infers from the information so collected certain general principles about the occurrence of the phenomena and about the relationship between the various parts. So, for example, to see the effect of heat on metal bars, some different types of metal bars are taken. One from iron, one from copper, another from gold, another from aluminium. All of them react differently to the temperature. So here we see the evidence, we see the phenomena that goes on, and accordingly we draw a conclusion. Therefore, empiricist observes phenomena, collects information, the occurrence of the phenomena, and finding out the interrelationship, and finally drawing out the conclusion. It does not do anything whimsically. All of a sudden, it does not react. Rather, it goes in a very systematic, step-by-step way, experimenting each step and coming to a perfect, objective conclusion. And then we move on to theory and concept precede investigation. So according to Kelvin, the theory and practice of empiricism, inductivism, requires that an observer, investigator or researcher goes out into world to observe, collect and record data or facts objectively, that is non-selectively and with no a priori ideas about their relative importance to him. He must then analyze what he has observed and recorded. So when you are going out for any observation, research or experiment, one should be just like a clean slate without having any subjective bias, without having any prior notion or without framing any previous viewpoint about it. One should go in a fresh mind and conduct research and finally come to the conclusion which has sufficient evidences to prove it. So the fact remains that one cannot investigate an object without first having a concept of that object or theory about that object. The concept one has to object will quite basically influence the methodology one employs in approaching and investigating the object. So here one has to study the object and one should know about the methodology of it and one should investigate it. One should have that prior knowledge that one has to apply to study the different things so as to come to the conclusion. So here we have to say, how do theories and methodologies affect the investigation? We say that the concept of an object might be affected by the task at hand. Here the task is counting people and the central theoretical issue can now be seen to be not just particular task or situation. So here we see the concept that we have in our mind will always affect the work we are doing. So one has to be very cautious while carrying out an experiment, objectively doing it. That should be valid, that should be reliable enough. So the facts or data that are gained emerge out of the particular investigation and its facets rather than being simply given or being there. They are theory laden, situational specific and methodologically determined or influenced. So there is a theory behind it. There are some experiments carried out. There is a situation there and methodology to be carried out to get the result. Then we see To avoid the influences or to be more objective, there is a growing use of blind and double mind in a more rigorous experiment in the behavioral science. Here we see that while conducting behavioral science, somehow or the other, we are having little bit of objectivity is a little bit of subjectivity is added to it, because we are human beings. We are sometimes unknowingly we become partial towards something. We have some special biasness. That should not be the thing. One should check a particular thing, rather recheck a particular thing to reach a valid, reliable knowledge. Otherwise, that particular conclusion cannot be considered to be a authentic, objective, or it will lack objectivity, reliability, validity. And this particular thing is to be checked when we are dealing with behavioral sciences, because it is very difficult to maintain objectivity or to maintain reliability and validity, because we are dealing with human beings and human nature keeps on changing depending upon the situation. So we see that completely free from bias, it is very difficult, and some specific biasness is always there. So gaining data about the world. So we say that gaining data about the world from infinite number of sensation, we have a particular time, we select those things we want or we need. We have our own way of selecting our need things according to our needs and requirement. We select or we see for solutions of our problem. We are very selfish regarding this. We are very pinpointed and focused. We always want those things that will satisfy our need. Therefore, gaining the data about the world, we always try to focus on things that will give us benefit. Therefore, according to Kant, we have certain a priori concepts and categories such as time, space, causality, number, quality, which act as organizers of our experience. Here, no experience is possible without the application of these categories of thought. We as human beings are born with them, so they are beyond our experience and make any human experience possible. Similarly, we have to say that growing person learns to impose order on the booming or buzzing confusion of sensation that he finds on the entry into the world. It is because of these categories that we find coherence and order in the world. So here there are sensations and perceptions. The way we sense out the things, that is a cup of tea. When we touch it, we feel the temperature. Then if we touch a cube of ice, we feel the coldness. If we taste sugar, we find sweetness. These all things we have gained through experience. We have been taught that sugar tastes sweets, then we taste it, and that particular taste is known as sweetness. So these all experience matter a lot when we gain data about the world. Even there are some factors like prejudices, social pressures, mental sets which act as filters. Some of the other time, these all factors are there back of our thought process, behind our mind. While thinking, we have some of the other biasness or we become partial knowingly or unknowingly. We try a lot to avoid that, but they just come into our thought process. Then we see that even Freud gives several forms of notes regarding repression, what are the thought process, how these all affect our reaction formation, how we react, the regression, the projection. These are all we study in educational psychology, that is our defense mechanism. These are all termed as defense mechanism, the way we react to the world. If something, when we say that we are not able to get good marks in examination or something has gone wrong We try to blame others sometimes. Some individuals try to blame others. Some individuals say that it is our own fault. They have their own way of justifying themselves. Sometimes we say that limes are limes. There is a proverb. I'm not able to remember that. Limes are sweeter, grapes are sour. अंगूरटा खटा लगुची लेंबूटा मीठा लगुची सेया कही कि आमे मन को मनई नो क्वेश्चन भलो पड़ी नथिला आउट ऑफ कोर्स थिला सेटा कही कि आमे निज दोषटा को ढांकी दो there are some of the other kind. These are all defense mechanism, the way we react to the different situation in the world. So according to the Freudian theory, these are all coming under the defense mechanism, and we see the world through the filtration of our sensory inputs. How we the knowledge or information we get through our sense organs. Sense organs are the gateways of information and knowledge. The way we have trained them, in that particular way, they give us information, and accordingly, we have our individual way of interpreting and behaving. So, ordering data about the world. That perception of any situation is essentially characterized by selective notification or filtration. The process is influenced substantially by our prior knowledge, preconception, prejudices. These things determine what to look for, what to notice, how to look, how to categorize. So we are very focused. If we want to solve a particular problem, we go for finding the different causes. What are the different resources to solve it out? What to notice? What is to be given importance? What is to be ignored? How to look at a particular thing? How to solve a problem? What are the alternative plans? What are the standby we have? All these things are to be taken into consideration. Then only we'll go for a proper ordering of data about the world. Then only we'll be able to find the real truth or real knowledge about the world. So gaining knowledge of the world is also determined or at least limited by what is available or what one has access to out of the things that are there. Again, the access we are having, how far we can go to find the reality. What is our limit? What is the limit beyond which we cannot move or we don't have any access? That also matters in having, in knowing the reality or in knowing the understanding the truth behind that thing, behind a particular thing, finding out the cause, knowing the cause-effect relationship. To give an example over here, that is the phenomena of moon illusion. That is, rising full moon appears to be larger than the full moon in the center of the sky. This illusion can be understood by the theory that humans are subject to optical illusion, by the theory that light close to large objects refracts, by the theory that human nervous system faced with constant size retinal image form infers that the moon is farther away at the horizon, so it relays a judgment of greater size. Here, when we say that when the moon is rising, we feel it to be smaller in size. But when is it at the center in the middle of the sky, we feel it round enough or big enough. That is due to the refraction theory. Even when we see a stick which is kept inside a beaker of water, that is the refraction theory, we find it bending upon, or we see that it finds to be a little bit of closer. It comes up. This is all because of the law of refraction. So here we have to find out the real cause, the real truth, the cause-effect relationship, the way we order the data, the way we get the knowledge through our sense organs, how we perceive, our past experiences, our prior knowledge, our immediate environmental influence. All these matters a lot to find out the real knowledge, the authenticity of knowledge. So in this way, we have come to the end of it, that is education and its role in generating real, authentic, valid, reliable knowledge. So we have completed the fourth block, that is education and overview, and this completes your MES-11, that is understanding education. So tomorrow we'll be having the new block, that is MES-12 block 1. Thanks to all of you. Good night.